Recording is on.
What's up, everyone? Thanks for coming to the DXbiz call. Thanks for showing up early, most of you. So I reached out to, I think it's either DeFi Prime or DeFi Raid. I think it's the one that Cooper Turley runs, and they have a guy working on listing the DXDAO as one of the DAOs to show up on there, and I'll be working with them and just making sure that they have the, the copy correct. We have an agenda today that has some stuff that Nylon wants to talk about, and we've got a pretty hot thread in the DAO talk regarding Pulp Machina and his critique of DXSwap, and I guess its strategy, where it falls within the DeFi DEX sort of sphere, as well as where it falls in line with the with what am I trying to say? With the alignment between the DXD holders and the DXDAO reputation holders and that social contract. So since I don't see Nylon here, we can start with the thread in question first, which I'll post here. And if anyone would like to share some thoughts about it, maybe we can kick it off with that. I know a few of you guys have already expressed your thoughts in the thread, but maybe we can sort of like iterate on a particular point that Pulp Machina brought up.
So I haven't read the entire conversation, but it reminds me a little bit of the conversation, like back to like governance stuff. Like it seems like understanding all of the information about a specific topic like governance or DXSwap, for example, the information sits across tons of video calls, different forum posts, different conversations, different Keybase chats. And so DXDAO still doesn't really have a great place to publish like a roadmap for that product. So there's people that I kind of thought have been following the DAO very closely, and everyone here knows that it's a lot of work to follow everything the DAO is doing, but there are a number of people who are pretty ingrained in the DAO, and they don't know about a lot of the initiatives that are part of DXSwap, such as we've discussed DXSwap on things like XDAI chain and eventual layer 2. We've also talked tons about governance and things like that, and what types of governance, and letting LPs govern the individual pools that they own. So there's all these missing pieces, and once again, we maybe if we put these all in one place where anyone can learn everything that DXDAO is talking about with DXSwap, it would help the conversation, because a lot of the questions come out and they're missing half the information and things like that. So it's hard to have good, valuable conversations that that have good outcomes when there are people missing a lot of information related to the actual topic. That's like my overall observation, and where that place is, DXDAO still needs, and it needs to be for different products, it needs to be for different verticals, but yeah, there's a miscommunication going on, which we should work on solving, I think.
Yeah, so I think I totally agree. We're so siloed still, which is interesting because we have a lot of open, like all our accounts are open, and but it's not written down. So when Chris did this month in review thing, like there's a reason why it was uh, loved so much. Like it actually got, like, everyone was happy about that, which is a signal for maybe we should do that more often than just per month. But it's quite some work, right, to aggregate all those discussions, and then even like we discuss a lot of things, but then no one decides something because we can't decide. So it was just discussed, and then should we put that on paper and actually go with it?
Yeah, I agree that the month in review circulated really, really well and got a great response. Some people retweeted it. I think the gentleman from Fuse did, and maybe we could do more of that, like publicizing even like the smallest progress. They don't have to be like 50 bullet points, but it could just be like we had this call and we talked about ABC and decided to move in this direction.
Yeah, I mean that's useful. That's, in my mind, that's a separate thing than, like, because we're talking specifically about like a DX swap thing right now, and like the question is, what could we do better so that more people that just glance at DXDAO and they glance at DX swap, the product, and they what could they read that they have a deeper understanding of, like, what the actual end goal of DXSwap is, which is way bigger than just a Uniswap fork, and why that would be good for DXDAO in tandem with all of DXDAO's other products. Like, that's a very specific document, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I don't think it's a great document, but that document exists, the strategy and positioning document for DXSwap that like lays out all of those things.
Yeah.
I think that has not, I don't know if it captures kind of everything, but I think that's like the goal that we need to like work on, that type of documentation that like fleshes out some of those ideas. And even just thinking about like last week, how we were talking about on Friday, you know, both the like optimized pool governance structure, and then also like maybe doing ETH rewards, right? Those are just like new ideas that we're kind of maybe thinking about, but they kind of make sense to us because they're part of this like larger story. And I think we need to document that. I think we're doing I would say pretty good job, I think, of documenting this and being forthright with the community. I think there are really two separate, and I don't want us to like, I think we're kind of complicating this issue, and there's two separate things, right? One is is Pulp Machina's specific original post and idea that you talked about in Keybase, we talked about in the call on Thursday, Friday, and today, which is about like supplying DXDAO liquidity. That's a like brand new topic that is like we haven't really touched on directly, and I think that's like really interesting, and I think that's only coming out because we've like been iterating out in the open. And then like separate to that is some people, and I think it's important not to look and give credence to the loudest voices. But there are some people that like disagreed with the overall like strategy of DXSwap. And for that, it seemed that those people, I think, were, and this is my opinion, those people were giving their criticisms were not aligned with the strategy that has been laid out. And you can like disagree with that strategy, and I think that's what like Pulp Machina was doing. But it was kind of a I think that was, how do we deal with like criticism that we think is like, I mean, we just kind of have to deal with it in some way. And I think it's fine for the criticism to come up, but I think they're like really two separate strands of criticism. And I also, just to close this, I think this is like part of the whole process, right? Like someone coming and posting that they hate DX swap, and then like, well, crap, the people that have been working on it need to come up with a response and like do it in a cogent, coherent way. And that like back and forth like actually does create in the end, I think, a good strategy, governance, like structure, all of these things. So that's my broad take, but I am interested just to eventually Lauren talk about that the original point by Pulp Machina, not kind of how the tangents that I got sidetracked after.
Yeah, we probably should dig into that specifically. I think that's worth discussing here. But I mean, he himself had flagged it sort of as a transparency issue, which I think he's right that there's a problem here. I don't think it's because people are being opaque or like trying to hide things. I think we are super transparent. I think the problem is communication, right? Like it's just not easy to find information. It's not like concisely like, you know, distilled somewhere. And that, I mean, I think as Sky points out, that's kind of like across the board a problem. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we should talk about the specific issue that he brought up about DXD liquidity, but at some point, I think we should also kind of revisit, like, you know, how is product strategy articulated and where is that displayed? Like, how do people look at governance proposals and where is that displayed? Like, it's just not easy to find so much stuff, and we need to solve that separately, I think.
Just to like narrow specifically though, I think there is a difference between like transparency concerns and like communication concerns. And I guess like for this, I'm not really seeing the transparency concerns. I'm seeing like communication concerns.
I think that communication is what the problem is, but Pulp Machina, if you look at his original couple posts, calls it, like he says, this is concerning from a transparency perspective, right? So I think communication problems can have the effect of hurting transparency. Like even though we're not trying to hide anything, right? Like,
yeah, I think from the outside, it can be perceived as being like you're trying to hide something, even though that's not the intended purpose. It's just because people are talking about one particular thing on Keybase or, you know, the DAO Talk forums or what have you. And so it's just kind of, everything's kind of scattered about in its own silo, right? And so I could see how that one could exploit a system like that.
So I want to go back to his post because I guess he's saying this issue arose because of a lack of transparency, or like, because I guess like, yeah, I mean, I feel like this issue has come about because like we hadn't been thinking of it.
But I think he also has a problem with like what the DXDAO is doing. So like, through the DXDAO, you used to only get DXD through the trust, and now you can get it through DXSwap. And I guess that breaks away from like the perspective of an investor who sees bonding curve like as the only source. Like, okay, so I'm in, anyone else must get in higher from the bonding curve. And I guess his argument is that the DXDAO itself providing a secondary market is maybe counter to that, right?
Yeah, I find the argument like interesting, and I think we can like debate the argument. I guess my like point is I'm not sure if there's a process concern or like what should we do? What should we do specifically at the process concern and separating that from like the argument?
So from the original post in the first section, second paragraph, he says, or she, or whoever, note that I cannot find a link to a past proposal for this decision. This is concerning because it raises transparency and good governance issues. And he comes back to that, you know, I respond to that specifically. He responds again, like kind of saying, yeah, this is a transparency issue. I think what he's trying to say is that this issue that he's raising, like, should have been brought up to rep voters. Now, there's nuance here. If you dig in, this is what Sky is talking about. Like, there's some things that Pulp Machine is saying that maybe he just doesn't understand about DXSwap. Like, all pairs are 50-50, so that's not even a question, right? Like, that never needed to be voted on because it's the only thing that's possible, right? So, but I mean, like, I think the takeaway for me here is that, you know, if he's seeing this as a transparency issue, it is a transparency issue. Like, but I think that the problem is communication. Like, we need to work with DAOstack to improve. And by the way, I sent this post to Matan and everybody at DAOstack so they could see the complaint. And like, I think we need to work to like make sure that we have good process around these decisions and good process around communicating the outcomes and where they are and like what's important, right?
I mean, even if we figured out a process, doesn't that still kind of leave the issue of like, do we have the tools and the organization methods to carry out that process, since everything is kind of scattered about and it's kind of hard to get up to speed on a particular issue?
Yeah, I think they're both, it's two sides of the same coin, right? Like, we need to improve the tooling, we need to improve the process.
Yeah, like
I think we need to, and again, I think this is like a positive input and kind of leading to the discussion. But like, I guess just in the thread that I shared, which was like, you know, a 3 or 4 week discussion on DAO Talk, like we basically are like asking and seeking for community feedback through that whole time. And of course, that's where the proposal is late. You can see linked to the proposal there. So I guess I'm saying, and I think this is where like the point I'm trying to make is that I think we need to do a better job of communicating rather than like rejigging our whole like processes or kind of like that. Because to me, I think that this is like, we're iterating out in the open. No one was kind of doing anything. I think that's a very important way for how that's framed in the community and elsewhere on that thread, was because it kind of came across as this like transparency thing. And I just think that's like something to push back on.
Yeah, I think we should definitely push back on the fact that like this, nobody's hiding anything here, and it's all been and it's all been following like this process of finding consensus. I think it's more just distilling the important points and getting them out there in a way that's easy for people to understand. Because I think from the Pulp Machina perspective, he's looking at the proposal that passed. Okay, here's the final whatever, and we're going to provide $300,000 of liquidity. And it doesn't say at what price. It doesn't say, you know, what that means for the bonding curve. And he's kind of like, why didn't that get attention? I mean, and part of it is it wasn't really brought up from that angle, and it's good because he's now bringing that up, right? But like, what could we have done better to make sure that like this was kind of flagged ahead of time? I don't know. I mean, it's tough. He could have been paying more attention, right? Part of this is their fault too for not paying more attention, but.
I mean, so he's looking at this from a perspective from an investor. So if that was the case of only the money being taken out of the treasury, it's in the proposal, right? It said how much it would take out. But this time, it's not about the money itself. It's just hurting whoever is buying on the bonding curve, right? Or bought at a later time. So this perspective is very, very specific. And it's more strategic than the money itself. Just what strategy are we taking? And if we take this strategy, it hurts any future bonding curve buyers, which is how the price goes up on the bonding curve. So I think just to separate those two things, it just like it's almost like DXDAO has a strategy because of the bonding curve and the secondary market, and then we're breaking the strategy by adding the secondary market. So I think the communication part for that part is just we didn't agree on a strategy, but it's there, and then we never communicated that strategy. Like, or did we? Was there a strategy like we are gonna raise the price by only providing the liquidity?
So there has to be a proposal to move any funds out of the treasury. So like Nico's working on the relayer and kind of that whole process, but like there hasn't been any proposal about moving funds and selling them at anything on the bonding curve. And so I think like that process, right, would need to somehow kind of be out in the open, and we'd have to have there would be a proposal for that, and any rep holders that's seeing like large amounts of DXD or ETH move should definitely be paying attuned to that. But like that, I guess the execution of that like strategy hasn't happened yet. And so in my mind, I feel like we had like a first, hey, this is what we're thinking, right? And this is the community launch parameters that were passed in mid-10 September. And then like we basically haven't done an update, but I also don't think there's been any like actions that have really like happened, because we haven't been proposing to move around. Having said all that, like this is the time that we should be discussing this, because if we are wanting to move forward with a proposal to take DXD from the treasury, then like this is the time to kind of talk about that. I wonder.
Sorry, I was going to say, you could argue the process is working, right? Like that basically, you know, the folks, myself included, that helped kind of craft that original strategy, right? Like we made a mistake. We didn't think about the bonding curve situation here. The signal proposal was up, it passed. Community member Pulp Machina sees the signal proposal, sees the problem, flags it, raises it. Now we're discussing it. Like the process is actually working. I mean, some of us screwed up, and that's what we're realizing now. But like it's and like didn't consider it from this angle. But like I think in a way too, the process is working. It's only a single proposal. No money has moved yet. Like there's a separate proposal. We need to actually move the money, and it's being flagged ahead of that. So
you didn't mess up. Like we shouldn't see it as messing up. We should be able to propose stuff that is not popular and not for everyone, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. And proposing something doesn't mean we decided. So we shouldn't think in that sense, I think.
No, that's great.
Yeah, this is a part of the governance process, right? Like, you know, we propose something, there's kind of like something that's ongoing, like consensus is being established, and then, you know, someone kind of shakes that with their own perspective, and this is part of the governance process, basically.
Yeah, and I completely agree that kind of with how we're kind of framing and accepting this. I do think one of the things that makes me so bullish on DXDAO culture and community in general is the ability to take in outside information and not immediately react defensively. And I say that like thinking that maybe like, you know, I or we are reacting defensively to that. But I think just it's a really, really great trait of the community if we can like allow potential criticisms, right, to come in and not have us like become defensive and start like saying, you know, that's a bad idea, or, you know, that. So.
Yeah, and criticism is good. And I will just say that what I will push back on, though, is unconstructive criticism and just negativity. Like, if you are criticizing, it should be constructive. There should be questions asked. There should be ideas put forward. And all that is very good. But, like, I don't think there's a lot of room for, you know, just straight negativity. That's not really helpful.
Yeah. That gets back to, John, your point right there is, like, if someone is going to say something that I don't like that idea, it works much better if they say, here's a better idea or another idea. So if you're like, DX swap is not like someone, I hate DX swap for DXDAO, it's just going to be a flop. Okay, what's a better idea that, and then we can weigh between those two ideas, right? Because just saying, oh, that's going to suck, that doesn't help anyone, right?
Right, exactly. It's just, you know, you're just insulting people and not really doing anything constructive. So
yeah, I mean, in that thread, John and me, we definitely pushed back and we were defensive, and so I was like, I actually thought the same thing about the point Chris mentioned about, like, I'm emotional about that, so I'm like immediately getting protective and go like all in and like, okay, let's have a war. But it is much better to actually like learn how to talk together and really try to get always the best outcome for everyone. And Clément actually did it at the end. He said at the beginning, it's like, this is shit, it's crap. But then he's like, but if you actually do something like this could be a differentiator and it could work. And it actually, like the XDAI stuff, that was like completely, it was, at least for me, it is kind of planned already that DXBob and Omen will go to XDAI. And so that was like, okay, that's like good points he raised, and this is something where we can start working on.
This is the whole ballgame. Like, if we can do
this well, like this is the type of like cultural of like iteration that you can like build anything, absorb people. So yeah, I just, getting good at this process of constructive feedback and iteration, like in forums, on calls, in like social, across maybe social media, like this is just a really important thing that we can get. This can be our competitive advantage.
Yeah, we like, I would say that we should assimilate and make him a member. Like, what's his name?
Absorb.
Absorb. Yeah, sorry, not assimilate.
So, I mean, judging from the comments, Pulp Machina is a rep holder who participated in the initials thing. So, I mean, already a member, and presumably a DXD holder, given how much he cares about this. But who knows?
But I guess he took a few hours to actually come up with like a proper blog post who's not shitting, but actually like, guys, what's going on here? And I think we should definitely send him like a more invite letter to like, okay, it seems like you want to join.
Should we talk about the main point a little bit? Which, I mean, get to that, like, yeah,
Yeah. So,
the main point obviously being like deploying a new source of DXD supply that's managed by DXDAO that is at a different price than the bonding curve. I think the reason that we're in this like quote unquote situation is because of the 100K pre-mint, right? That's like DXD that the DAO holds that it can, as it vests, it can quote unquote do whatever like it wants to. And that's separate from the bonding curve. So any DXD that would be coming off of this did not come from the bonding curve. So then the question is like, how do you have these two corresponding things exist? I think the kind of most obvious option to me is, and I think Pat said this in the thread, is to do some type of like buy back of DXD for the liquidity that's being supplied, or some other way basically of like pricing the DXD at the price in the bonding curve. Broadly speaking, I am a little worried about the precedent it would set for DXD in the treasury. Because I think with this precedent, basically like DXDAO would not be able to use its DXD at a price less than the bonding curve. And this is already a precedent I think we have for worker compensation proposals, right? Where that like DXD is priced at the bonding curve there. But I do think if we did something like this, it's just kind of almost whenever DXD would be used from the treasury, it would probably like be priced at some way at the bonding curve going forward.
Yeah, we kind of, if we decide on something here, yes, as you said, we kind of deciding on not being able to use the DXD, even though like it's vested every month, right? We didn't get 100K directly.
So just like the ETH that you can think of DXD as ETH that DXDAO holds, and it's really this thing that, I mean, the corporate world, like the traditional finance world, like shareholders, the board and the shareholders make a decision on whether or not they want to monetize at a certain price. And now, if we think if DXDAO really doesn't want to like to not use ETH because ETH is too low, or to not use DXD because the current market price is too low, it's the same argument, right? Like, let's not spend the ETH that DXDAO has. It doesn't make it. It doesn't. It's the current market price, right?
I think there is a difference. I mean, ETH is not something that is issued by DXDAO, right? So the difference being that DXD is issued by, I mean, DXDAO effectively, right, through the bonding curve. and there is a price, right? So I mean, in effect, there are people who bought from the DXDAO at a certain price, and so I disagree with publishing's take that it's like a new bonding curve. It's not a new bonding curve. This is existing supply that's in the treasury, but to put it into the circulating supply at a price that undercuts what previously the DXDAO sold it at, it's sort of like, that's not great. Like, I mean, that's,
But
So what was
then you can never use it, right? Ever.
well,
we're already using it, right? For workers.
But we're issuing it at a price. Workers are being compensated with DXD. One, it's in a vesting 2-year vest,
Yeah.
and two, it's being issued to them at a rate which is at the mint price of the bonding curve. So not below what anybody has ever paid for DXD from the bonding curve.
That's different.
Yeah.
So why did we mint 100K? Where was there any idea why? Like, what was the idea of having 100K DXD?
I mean, in my mind, the point is so that so the DAO can use it, right? And and who knows how it would be using it. Yeah.
Probably we didn't know it would reach 1 ETH that fast.
Well, I mean, so
just 1 ETH. It's just like, just 1.
Yeah, but so you could use it for worker. You can only use it for cases like in this argument. You use it for cases where you can only issue it at the bonding curve price, like payments, like to DXDAO workers. Like, because at what point, like 1 year from now, the price in the market is hovering around the bonding curve price again. Let's say, like if it's a little bit below, you can't use it, and if it's a little bit, the market price never goes above the bonding curve price. It shouldn't. So you can really never use it then.
Yeah, I don't think we should be that extreme as to negative. Like that's why I use the language that we should respect the people who bought from the bonding curve. I think another way to look at that is like you don't want to use DXD in a way that could like negatively impact the market price, right? However, I mean you don't really necessarily know what the effects are going to be, but
isn't every actually way of using DXD will, like if you release DXD in any way, it could hurt the market price. That's it.
It will impact the circulating supply.
Yeah, and also like we don't like if a worker gets his DXD, he can sell them, and it will affect, even though it's vested 2 years, whatever. But after 2 years, it will.
I mean, I guess we could kind of think it out, like game it out a little bit, right? Like if we adhered to a precedent, which was that DXD will never be released in the circulating supply from the pre-mint at a price less than the mint price on the bonding curve. What does that mean, right? Like what would like
you can never use it.
Well, it wouldn't be never, right? But you'd have to get the price of DXD back to the mid price before you could use it, and then you'd still probably have to answer the question of like.
I would argue that when you bought DXD from the start, it was very clearly known that the DAO minted 100,000 DXD to be used to accomplish DXDAO's mission. So like that was transparent from the start. To then now say like the DXDAO cannot use it. It's a vesting schedule. So you want to know only the vested amount comes out over the year, multi-year period. But that was like that's built into the smart contract. So all of that stuff is up. That's why it's not all released on day one, because you only want it coming onto the market. But that would assume that it's supposed to come onto the market. That's the whole point of the monthly vesting, right?
Yeah.
If you can't use it, like, then might as well just burn it all. Right?
Yeah, I mean, he talks about social contract, right? Like, what is the social contract of having a pre-mint? I mean, in theory, it's to be used, right? Like,
and you protect against that. You protect against it dumping by having a monthly vesting. That's the whole point of the monthly vesting.
Yeah, like one interesting point would be that we say as soon as we actually do some burning, right? That this will, like, I don't think we should position ourselves that we will not release DXD, which we kind of do right now. We kind of like do everything we can to not release something into the market, which may even hurt us.
Is there any way
we could. I basically want to use the DXD at the price of the mint curve, like we're doing with worker compensation. But obviously, like you can't do a 50 ETH, 50-50 ETH DXD pool. But could you like basically say like half the pool is coming from the pre-mint, and then the other half is being bought on the open market?
So you
or
could
something?
you could theoretically, Nico is going to probably get some heart palpitations. I think it actually changes the implementation of what he's doing. But I think in theory, you could provide liquidity at a mid price of the curve, right? And the problem I see with that, what happens, game that out. When you provide liquidity at the price of the curve, which is above the market price, there's liquidity in Uniswap, there's liquidity in Balancer. Immediately what will happen is bots will arbitrage. It's not even an instant dump, it's just arbitrage. There will be arbitrage between the existing liquidity and it's going to bring the prices into equilibrium. It will bring the market price up by some amount. And then, but what in effect we're doing is, selling a bunch of ETH for DXD, and which maybe is a good thing. Maybe we want to do that. But the bad thing I see about that is the arbitragers are going to take a huge cut of it, and they're going to do it immediately. So I think, so I think that strategy is bad simply because of arbitrage bots like eating up most of the. So I think, if you want to get the same effect, which is selling ETH for DXD or buying DXD off the market, we should use Mesa, and we should just put a limit order in for some amount of DXD at certain prices.
Are anyone against that idea? Like just do a buyback?
I think it sets a
Precedent. I think like the other thing I'm with like I think I'm thinking about the conversation and
separate from DXSwap and in like
the context of like DXD and DXD price and DXD holders who are kind of like, maybe going through a little
not existential crisis,
but the token has not been performing as well, and so I think that is a context for some of this. And I also think like there's been whether in governance things, like there's things that we're moving towards, but in terms of like right now, DXD holders can kind of seem to be a little bit unhappy. And then separate from that, I like,
I'm bullish.
I think like DXD is like priced low. And if we are going to do the thing of like a share buyback, like I think it would make sense, almost independent of DXSwap, for DXDAO to do DXD buyback if it thinks the price of DXD like is low. So I guess I'm just saying I think that conversation is almost separate, can be almost separate to the DXSwap one.
Also, if we do a buyback, we have even more DXD, and we can't even use those.
Well, no, but now that we bought it back at that price, that means we can use it at that price.
Yeah, but what happens if we want to sell it?
First in, first out.
People would just, yeah, we can use it to a certain degree. I mean, we could do whatever we want, actually, but people would probably not be happy. The DXD is vested, the ones we have, but it's just not, people not liking it because of the price.
But they will like it if the price is rising again.
Yeah, I mean, the discussion I saw yesterday, people were bullish, and I don't know, I'm
buying DXD, like right now.
Also, the goal is to turn DXSwap into, along with other products, into a revenue generating machine. Now, there's going to be, to do that, you have to invest. Like VCs spent $5 million, $10 million investing in Uniswap to then turn it into a revenue generating machine. Like this, if you're thinking long term, you got to get DXSwap going, and one way to do it is a DAO providing liquidity plus partnerships plus all this other stuff. And if using some liquidity today, that's like a good investment for DXD holders.
I would argue it's still better than just having it on our DAO avatar address, right? It's treasury management and actually boosting our own product. And we don't need Paradigm or Hayden crypto Twitter. Like we're actually doing our own shit. So it's like, yeah, it's a proper skin in the game. Like, there's no better.
You're watching.
We'd love to have your help if you're watching.
Buying back some DXD to average in with using some DXD. I mean, you would buy back some if we didn't have enough vested DXD, that we needed more DXD and it was still locked and we wanted to provide more liquidity, then you would buy some more DXD in the market, which maybe we will do that. Like, maybe that does make sense.
Yeah, I think
like two things or two kind of questions that I throw out there. One, is there an argument that this is a negative? Like, does it have downward pressure on the price of DXD? Like, I think if you have a pool that's priced at like current market rates, I don't know if you could like argue necessarily that that's like going to create downward pressure. I think that's separate from whether or not the DXDAO is like selling its DXD at lower than the bonding curve, which would be more of like a social contract broking. But like, I don't really buy the argument that this will be, this is downward pressure on DXD even in the short term. And I think second, if the price of DXD on the open market right now was 0.75 ETH, would that change anything? And the bonding curve is still 1.03 or whatever. Like, how would that kind of change things?
Do you think we'd still be doing like talking
About
about
a buyback if it was, yeah, basically if the price was better?
Yeah.
The price would be better, like that we set up an order which is clearly above the market price right now.
I'm saying if the market
Price, let's live in a world, let's imagine a world where DXD is trading at 0.75 ETH. We're all really happy, everything's going like great, but the price on to mint is still at 1.03 ETH. So if
DXDAO were to
provide liquidity at 0.75 ETH, that would still be like lower than 1.03 and still be like quote unquote like breaking the social contract. But like, I don't think we would be having this conversation if the difference between the market price and the mint price wasn't so large. And because it's about like the difference in size, I think that's why like the conversation is much more in the context of like DXD price than it is in like DXSwap and using the DXD in that way.
So if we add more liquidity to the market, we actually stabilizing the price at the current price, right? Like if we add liquidity to DXSwap at the same price at Uniswap,
yeah, but
the price
it's not like
stabilizes.
But that's not like 300,000. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's stabilized, but it's like, I mean, if someone buys from that pool, then the price is going to go up. Like that pool is not permanently at, whatever 0.34 ETH.
I think still the argument would still be you are not helping the price to go up, even though like it's not our mission. We shouldn't think about the price that way, but still we're hurting the price by stabilizing it below.
But as a business, we are trying to create a revenue generating machine which prints money like Uniswap.
I don't think
that's going to make DXD go up in the long run.
People are too short term thinking.
We're not.
Holders are not.
To explain that we're doing this for long term, like multi-year.
All right, let that talk.
And to be honest, I think we are the only project who's besides Gnosis, who's actually who want to get their tokens back. That's like a very important social signal. That's like, okay, we are getting our DXD back, and that's a gamble. And I hope it will work out. Like, right, if we buying those tokens for that price, our goal is like that the price is actually like it's actually a good deal for us, which it is in my personal view. But no, everyone is printing shit tokens, and they like the only thing they care is ETH, like real money.
Yeah.
And like so I think I'm pro buyback.
This actually reminds me of 2017 when there was a lot of ICOs and price pumped up. People bought the coin and then prices went down. Let's say it was like summer 2017, not the December, January pump. So what happened was discussions about price. People wanted the price to go up. There was projects that actually worked actively on keeping the price up with hype, with announcements, events, etc. And then were projects working on the technology and the long-term shit. And to be honest, I was team long-term. I was like, this is better to do this and this and that. But those projects that actually worked on keeping the price up, keeping the hype, I know I don't like this. It's not my thing, but I'm just, from my sense, like if we compare 10x, which had, I don't know how many millions, they had 100 million like in ICO, and then you had Monaco, which had 10, $20 million in the ICO. And then you look today, like what happened today, Monaco is like, or crypto.com, they are huge. Like they're a top 15, top 20 crypto project. And 10x is like top 600 project. And if you just look at their strategy, both of them, one was focusing on the price, the other one was focusing on technology and like long-term profitability. I don't think you can compare this. I don't know, but I'm saying we should still think about price, because this is how the money we have, like we got the money from these guys. We should still keep this up, keep them happy somehow. We shouldn't listen to them blindly, but if there is an action which keeps the money happy, let's say, we should consider it, even though it's short term. I think that's a strategy, even though it doesn't make sense in the normal business world. I think crypto is different.
That's an interesting perspective.
It is. I don't like it, but it's a reality.
Aren't we talking, like, at the core here? Aren't we, all of these things we're talking about, just kind of ways to mitigate risk on it from an investor's standpoint? So like people that buy DXD, they don't want the number to go down. Is that kind of what we're talking about here? And then I would ask further, I mean, we can tinker with the machine all we want, but that doesn't stop somebody from coming and selling their whole stake, which, we've spent so much time tinkering with the machine, and then it's just like you get your ship gets swapped with some wave. So like, I don't know, like, is that even possible?
I think if DXDAO buys DXD to contribute liquidity, that makes sense, but but making it very clear that unlocked DXD can be used by the DXDAO for reasons, and the reason that we're buying it is because we like the price.
Yeah, that's actually really good.
I think that,
yeah, that's actually the way we should go on.
But we're not going to only use it in the market when it's at the bonding curve price. That just doesn't make any sense.
I would also just add that it's possible, if the real goal here is simply to beat other liquidity providers like on Uniswap and Palantir, it's possible that the DXD holders on those platforms providing liquidity will move their liquidity to DXSwap, and then all of this is actually kind of moot.
Well, this goes to the ETH rewards thing, right? Well, why don't we just, instead of buying the DXD, why don't we just incentivize it with, we're going to buy that DXD with ETH. Why don't we just use that ETH to incentivize other DXD holders to like deposit into DXSwap?
And like that would maybe
be like obviously we wouldn't own the DXD in that case, but that would probably be a much cheaper way of getting liquidity into DXSwap. But then you're just giving away ETH, which is
also John or Nico, is that, do we think about having how much DXSwap is burning balance somewhere? I think that's like one of the most important numbers to showcase.
So I was actually
total fee.
Yeah, I was actually working on this last night. Some help from Augusto. So with the contracts as they are now, the DXDAO has the ability to set the address for the fee too, where the protocol fees go. So, I mean, one thing you could do is set it to the avatar of the, DXDAO, just send it to the treasury. But I mean, the social contract, as laid out in many places already, is to send it to the DX Trust. And it's going to be a little bit of a pain, I think, if it's from the avatar to the DX Trust, require proposals and stuff. So what I'm actually working on is a separate smart contract to be the fee too. So basically, all the profits will collect in one place, and it'll have some functions to automatically convert the profit, which comes in the form of LP tokens, into Ether, which can be sent to the DX Trust. And so I think I'll talk more about this in other forums, but I think that's going to be the way that we go. But to answer your question, that will allow you to easily see in one contract where all the profit is.
All right. I do want to give Nylon some time to speak on his part of the agenda today. So I don't mean to like cut this short. I know we can keep going, but I want to give Nylon some time.
We can always continue this in a couple of the other calls, including the DX Swap call. So.
Yeah, so just like a few updates about the XDAI deployment. So it's interesting what had happened. If you go to the link that Ingemar just shared in the chat, it will take you to the old plugin manager. You see like the parameters of the funding and voting power and the added token registry plugin. But if you click on top, on the breadcrumbs on top to like the proposal plugins, you'll see that the plugin manager doesn't have any proposals. So what happened? So basically what happened is the updating the parameters of the plugin manager is actually deleting the scheme and adding a new one. So what happened is that because we redeemed the plugin manager proposal before the funding and voting power proposal, that funding and voting power proposal is tied to a plugin manager that is no longer registered to the DAO. Make sense? So yeah, that's kind of like one thing that happened. Like there is a fix to that. We are able to register that old plugin manager back and give that the ability to basically redeem these proposals. So the people who staked on them wouldn't lose all the gen that they staked. Yeah, exactly. So that's Chris. Don't panic. It's okay. So we'll be able to basically redeem these proposals. However, we did find like an additional bug that this plugin manager, this updated plugin manager, doesn't have the same permissions as the older one, which is, I mean, this is kind of like bad news, but I feel like this is actually great that it happened so early. Now that we're still testing stuff and we still have like take money out of the DAO kind of proposals. So, the status right now is that this new plugin manager doesn't have the same permissions as it should have. So, like, the DAO can't be upgraded, basically. So what will need to happen is to migrate this XDAI DAO to a new DAO. And, yeah, we can do that. It's fairly simple. So, yeah.
Wait, so we could include the missing rep holders in the new one.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what we can do now is create like a copy of that. So like with like everyone who just joined as well. So yeah, that's that. Any questions? Did someone want to say something? I thought Geronimo wanted to say something, then muted himself.
That's what it sounded like.
No. So like wasn't anyone surprised about that we have like less members for the XDAI? Like, do you guys think we should actually include the rest of the guys as placeholders with their like mainnet addresses, just so the rep distribution is actually like almost identical again? It's just like bigger whales on main are even more bigger whales on XDAI, and that's like It's
Yeah, but
that's just like a suggestion.
you're including addresses that can't be used, right?
But
Yeah.
right, I mean, right now they're just like missing completely. But they just have like their old placeholder address. They can't use it, so they need to like burn the rep on the old address on XDAI and then mint it. So it's just like one more proposal.
Yeah. So that means like mapping the reputation process would be 2 proposals: burn reputation from my old address and give it to me here.
Exactly. Or should we keep the current one and just like do a clone of the existing one and move?
So if those addresses are inactive, like they're not paying attention, which is implied by the fact that they didn't map, right? Then it shouldn't really change the outcome of any vote, right? Because just because the weights are bigger on XDAI, they're just bigger because inactive people have been removed, right? And in other words, they wouldn't have voted anyways, right? And all the other relative weights are just increased. The only effect I think it would actually change is that because some of the active voters now have a magnified amount of rep, an absolute majority could happen.
Yeah.
Where it wouldn't happen on mainnet.
So do we want that? Like, do we want more power, like a more concentrated power?
I mean,
the pros are we can move faster.
Yeah, and I think that might be the goal of like XDAI, is to kind of do things that like a little bit faster. And I mean, the point of more centralized power, I don't think it's it's not like 100% exactly this. It's anyone who wants to join this DAO and has reputation in the mainnet DAO can do it. So it's basically like opting in to use the XDAI DAO if you are on Gnosis Safe. So yeah, that's that.
So Nylon, like it's clear the current one is dead. I think as soon as possible we should clone, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not fully dead. Like we will need to add the schemes. So Mr. Powers here could have his gen back. But yeah, like we will have to, like there are a couple more things to do it there, and then yeah, like this week we will deploy the copy.
Sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think that it's kind of great that we're doing like all these experimentations like fairly early. Yeah, like Sky's initiatives as well with the whole transferring the DAI and sending like small amounts and then taking it out. I think it's good. And maybe I'll touch a bit about what Sky asked.
Yeah.
So when you send funds to the avatar, then there's like an internal contract transfer that transfers the money from the avatar to the vault. What happens with the XDAI bridge, I'm not entirely sure exactly how it works, but if you send it directly from the XDAI bridge, something goes wrong there with this supposed oracle that sees that the avatar received funds, and then it just stays in the avatar. So that's kind of like a problem. So like you either send it, if you send it from the bridge, you send it to the vault. And like another option would be to just send it to an address first, and then that address sends it to the avatar. And that could be, can also create a contract for that. It would just be like another transaction though.
So is it always better just to send money directly to the vault then? Like why send it to the avatar ever?
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I guess because that's like the outward kind of address of the DAO.
The main contract address, right?
Yeah, the main like that's where transactions will be coming out of as well.
Yeah. So, and how does the DAO stack bridge have alternate receiver?
I don't know, but the DAO stack bridge only has like gen and xgen. It doesn't have anything else.
I know, but we need to get xgen. Well, DAO stacks xgen in the DAO so that it can do proposals and stuff. But can we use that bridge to? I mean, we have to use that bridge because that's the xgen that the DAO that Alchemy recognizes. But can we send it straight from the bridge, from the DAO stack bridge into the vault?
Ooh, I mean, to the vault for sure.
Well, no, it's an alternate receiver though.
Oh, so yeah, I'm not sure actually.
Who made the DAO stack bridge?
Oren would know. Like,
Okay.
I guess write it in the DAO stack chat and tag him.
Okay. Yeah, we just need to check if it has the alternate receiver capability. If not, we have to send it to someone, and then they can put it into the avatar or vault, I guess.
Yeah. But wait till the new DAO, yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So we need a new DAO. Okay.